All right, we're back with a very special part of our IPL coverage. It was only 6 months ago, and I know this because I was basically stalking this guy's Twitter account this morning in preparation for this interview. It was only 6 months ago that the great cricketer realised a career-long, or let's say, an adult lifelong dream by pestering Shane Watson into joining our show. And we sometimes still pinch ourselves that it's still happening. I don't know why he's back for the second half of the IPL or our IPL coverage, but he is. So we're back with Watto's Wrap, with his ornament to the IPL, an owner of 145 games in the tournament, 3,874 runs, 400s, 92 wickets. Shane Watson. Watto, g'day, brother.
Thanks for having me on again. I'm stoked that you braved it again to take me on.
Other way around.
You know how hard hitting this is, Watto. All right, let's get into the tournament. There's a lot we've got to catch up on, right? And you really have a lot of knowledge, and it's debatable whether we do. So, Delhi, Chennai, Bangalore, and Mumbai, top four. Watto, Rajasthan are on 8 points. They're beneath Mumbai on net run rate. Do you see opportunities for that top four to change over the next couple of games? And if so, who do you think will grab it and who might make way?
Yeah, Delhi have definitely got the most well-balanced team. That's for sure. Marcus Stoinis's injury last night, his hamstring injury that he looked like he pulled up with, could just like put their balance out of whack a tiny bit. But CSK started very well as well again. They've got a really well-balanced team and have been playing really well compared to my last season I played with them, which is a great thing. That wasn't great. The two teams that probably have the most question marks over in this top four is MI, because Rohit Sharma didn't play in the first game, and also Hardik Pandya. And if those guys are fit, they really provide so much impotence in their team. There's no question from a batting perspective. But if they don't, they can be. They look a little bit vulnerable, as they showed in that first game against CSK. So there's a couple of little question marks there over their batting more so than their bowling. Their bowling, they've got a very well balanced all round bowling attack. The one that outlier a little bit is RCB. Because I've always been very hot. Like, they started the tournament very well. This tournament with Glenn Maxwell coming in and providing a great middle order foundation. Like, he's the person that they've been missing for a couple of years. But just because they have always been so hot and cold, and we saw in the first game that they played against KKR, they can implode as well, even though they've got an incredible batting lineup. So they're probably the one for me where I think they could potentially, if they don't get some momentum in the next couple of games, they don't win the next 1 or 2 games, they could fall away fairly quickly. So the ones that I see, Rajasthan, yes, they've got a few holes and they're missing some big stars, Josh Buttler, Josh Archer, Ben Stokes. So they've got a few holes, a few weak points that could get exposed in when they play against a really quality opposition. But KKR are probably the one could be the one that comes up into the top four. KKR they've got a really well balanced team. Dre Russ is bowling, and he got 3 for 9 in the first game against a great batting lineup. They've got Owen Morgan, Shubman Gill, Dinesh Karthik. They've got from a batting perspective, they've got a really nicely balanced team. They didn't really start off that well at the start of the tournament, but they could definitely get on a roll because they know how to win. They've got some great world-class match winners. So KKR for me are probably a team that could jump up. But the only team really that's really out of it, I think, is Sunrise. They got holes galore, and some of their best players didn't come back as well. Overseas players didn't come back as well. But it's always, that's a beauty of the IPL. All the teams are pretty tightly matched. It's just the teams that have the most well balanced, and for me, it's Delhi and CSK are the ones who are going to be the most hard to beat.
Watson writes off RCB. Very fascinating, very interesting headline tomorrow morning.
Hey, not writing off, just questions.
No, I heard what I wanted to hear.
Just the questions.
Okay, Zach Coley, right?
Yeah, your words, not mine.
Yeah, Coley will never score 100 again. Interesting. Okay. Hey, what I want to ask you about the UAE. We've been joking here about their tough catching conditions, but there's been 15 drop catches in the first 4 games or something like that. Is it actually hard to catch in the UAE? And also, what are the characteristics of a UAE deck? Because it seems like they're much quicker. I mean, we saw Nortje last night. I think he bowled 8 of the fastest balls in the IPL so far, all over 150 clicks. But are the wickets, like, what are the characteristics of a UAE deck?
Yeah, first of all, when you talk about the catching, there's no there's no reason why there should have been 15 catches dropped. Like the atmosphere, the viewing, the lights are really good at all the grounds. So it's, I don't know whether it's just the pressure that people are feeling, they're not switched on when they need to. That's a bit of an outlier, and it can happen in certain tournaments for some reasons. Just catches start to go down a little bit. But the characteristics of the three grounds where they're playing, first of all, Dubai is probably the most all-round type of wicket. It can go through for the quick bowlers, but then at times it can start to turn a little bit as well, especially the back end of the tournament when the wickets get a little bit used. It can start to turn and hold a little bit. But Dubai's a bigger ground as well, so bowlers can get away with bowling their changes at pace because the batsmen have to hit the ball a fair bit further because it's a pretty big size ground. So Dubai's really suits the teams that have got the most all-round bowling attack in particular, because depending on how the conditions sort of match up, they've got the bowlers to be able to make the most of the conditions that they're presented with. Abu Dhabi, that's like, in a way, it's like batting on one of the Australian wickets, like the Gabba or something like that. The wicket that goes through beautifully, there's pace and bounce. So that's why Mumbai, with their pace bowling attack, with Bolt and Bumrah in particular, that's why it suits their team and has in the last IPL when they were playing there and played a lot of their games there. So Abu Dhabi, the ball does fly from a batting perspective. The ball does fly a bit more because of the pace and bounce in the wicket. The boundaries are a decent size, but not huge, especially square. So Abu Dhabi is definitely set up for teams who've got a better fast bowling attack and also batsmen who can play fast bowling really well. And Mumbai do. Rohit Sharma as a starting point certainly knows how to take on fast bowling. And then you've got Sharjah. Sharjah is just because the wicket's normally really good, because it's so small, the ground is so small that it's hit and miss. It's just like, who knows? Like a team could come up, one player could just get away out of nowhere, and then it's nearly impossible to be able to shut a batsman down if he starts going. We even saw that in the last IPL with Rahul Tewatia from the Rajasthan Royals. He was like, gosh, it seemed, 10 off about 40 balls, and then out of nowhere just exploded off Sheldon Cottrell and got Rajasthan Royals over the line. So that's Sharjah, just one moment or one batsman could come in and just take the game away from the opposition. So that's where Sharjah just provides a lot more questions. Who knows what's going to happen at that game, at that ground. It's really just whoever can have a match-winning performance really just turns the game very quickly. So, they're the three grounds. They're all great. They're all great career grounds considering the UAE is not a well-known cricket-playing nation. They've got beautiful facilities there. So, and there'll be plenty of runs available for all the batsmen.
Sounds like there's more variety in the decks in the UAE than there is in Australia. That's probably because they don't have Aussie rules there to drop in wickets. Anyway,
that helps.
You can leave that.
Don't get me started on that.
Maybe we should just play in the UAE. It sounds like it's something for everyone. Adil Rashid, Aussie jokes. Adil Rashid is finally in the IPL, and on his first outing, he had a tough time of it. I've seen it mentioned that international spinners are often not as favourable in the IPL because there's just so much domestic talent in India when it comes to spinners. In their home conditions. I know we're in the UAE now, but so much so that it's not particularly worth it, to often get an international spinner in. Does that ring true to you? And I guess more broadly, while you're here, like which area of Indian domestic talent, in terms of the a style of the game, like it impresses you or impressed you most throughout your career? Is it batters? Is it spinners? Quicks?
Yeah, there's no doubt that. From the young talent that are coming through, there's especially the batsmen and the batsmen for the young Indian batsmen, as the IPL sort of got, has continued to get and grow, the local Indian batsmen have definitely become better at playing fast bowling, particularly initially when they started, the young domestic sort of talent. If someone had a bit of pace in it, they really got in trouble. They got unstuck a little bit. So, but that's definitely changed. We see all the young Indian batsmen now. They can take on the quicks. They're obviously great players to spin because that's what they've sort of grown up on as well. So there's the young talent of the Indian batsmen. That probably has been the thing that has stood out for me, the evolution as the IPL sort of gone on through the years. But going back to Adil Rashid, there's no doubt that the overseas spinners, unless it really is like a mystery spinner or a real high quality leg spinner who can spin the ball both ways, who can bowl to left and right handers, they're the ones who do get picked up. So you obviously got Sunil Ryan, who's a mystery spinner. Rashid Khan, who bowls really fast, fast leg spinners, and his variations are harder to pick up, whether they're local Indian batsmen or whether they're overseas players. But outside of that, there hasn't been too many overseas spinners that are traditional spinners, like off spinners or left arm orthodox to an extent, and more of the conventional sort of leg spinners as well as the overseas bowlers who've done well, like Adil Rashid. So I think Adil Rashid's he'll come good because he's a quality leg spinner, but it's probably just going to take him a little bit of time to realise that even bowling against the domestic Indian players, if you get it slightly wrong and your variations are easier to pick up, then you can get punished, especially when the ball's not turning that much like it does in the UAE. So that's normally why, as a starting point, there's not too many overseas spinners that come in unless there's a bit of mystery and their variations harder to pick up. And also because growing up in India, it's hot a lot of the time, and the conditions aren't really conducive to fast bowling. So that's why there's so many spinners, because you're pretty mad to actually be a fast bowler in India, just because the balls don't bounce much. It's really hot a lot of the time when you're playing in the nets. Like they train and play all the time. So as a fast bowler, you get worn down pretty quickly. Whereas spin, you got a bit more leeway. You can handle a little bit more. So the strengths have always been the spinner. So that's why all the franchises will stay away from overseas spinners unless it's a real sort of high quality world class spinner. So when it comes to the local, going back to the local batting talent, the one guy that stands out for me the most, and I saw him up close and personal with the CSK the last year that I played, is Ruturaj Gaikwad. Who is just, and we saw in that first game against MI, like CSK were in trouble. Like I was a bit surprised that MS Dhoni won the toss and batted. He obviously knew a lot more than I did, but normally at the start or restart of a tournament, I personally would like to get into see what the wicket's going to do, because you don't know exactly what the first wicket that's prepared, you don't know exactly how it's going to play. So you'd normally prefer the opposition, the batting lineup, to be able to test out that wicket. But he obviously knew MS. You never question him because he knows more than anyone in cricket. So it worked out really well. And Ruturaj Gaikwad, for him to be able to, under pressure, the team was in a lot of trouble. For him to be able to get 88 and just 88 not out and dominate and get CSK to a match-winning total in the end is incredibly impressive. His ability to play against spin and hit boundaries through the middle, even though he's a pretty slight guy, he's not big and powerful, big and strong, but gosh, he can hit boundaries, especially through those middle overs when the five guys are back. So yeah, that's super impressive to be able to see. So he, for me, is one of the stands. We've seen that already in this IPL, is one of the leading run scorers. So it's super cool to be able to see a young guy who's not necessarily this big, powerful prototype of a T20 batsman, but he's got incredible skill to be able to take anyone on, not just in the first 6 overs, but through the middle and the back end of an innings as well.
Well, speaking about one of the old guys from CSK, and also from that game, CSK and Mumbai on Sunday night Australia time, could you relate to Suresh Raina not being able to see the ball as he was getting bumped?
Oof.
Didn't look fun.
Yeah, that was Look, there's no question. He probably, if he looked back at, I'm sure he's probably seen that footage again of that innings. He would be the first one to admit that it probably wasn't one of his best innings. To be able to see the way he got bumped, but then how he sort of took the game on, and it looked really high risk. It just looked like he was premeditating totally that every ball or some of those balls are going to be short. He sort of was giving himself a bit of room and just looked like he wasn't reacting and watching the ball super closely and just reacting to the ball that came down. So. Yeah, that wasn't one of the better innings I've seen Suresh Raina play. But the interesting thing is, Suresh Raina, when he's just batting instinctively, he plays the short ball incredibly well. He really does. And when I used to play against him, when I was playing for Rajasthan Royals against CSK and even international cricket as well, I'd bounce him quite a bit, especially early on in his innings. And when he's reacting to the ball and not premeditating it's going to be short, he plays a short ball incredibly well. But then as we saw the other night against MI, as soon as you can see him start to premeditate that the balls are going to be short, that's when he does get himself into trouble and plays really high risk shots, which he did. Which I'm sure he'll look back over that and rectify it for the next innings.
Talking about guys who are getting a little bit more senior or sort of older dogs, I wanted to ask you about David Warner, Watto. So some numbers here. 7 matches this season with Sunrisers, 193 runs at 27, 250s. Something to build. That's something to build on, but it's at a strike rate of 108, which is lower than he's ever recorded. He's already been dropped once due to Bairstow's unavailability. It was a lean test summer for him, coming back after injury. Of course, hasn't been much cricket to play. He's 34 years old. So my question isn't about whether he's still got it, because he's a great player. And there's plenty of life in him yet. I was keen to know from your perspective, as you get older in your career, what's it like to guide yourself out of poor returns and get back in the runs? David Warner's been on the circuit since 2007, with New South Wales. He's 34, he's in and out of bubbles, he's got 3 kids, and he's got to compete against the very, very, very best players in T20 cricket. Does it get easier or harder to get yourself back to the top as you get older?
It's definitely more challenging. Yeah, there's no doubt, especially when you have a layoff like Dave had as well. Like we see him going into the Aussie summer last summer, like having the break that he did because of his injury. Then everyone expects you just to be able to come in straight away and score runs. Everyone's going to be a bit rusty. Sometimes some people can just come in like AB de Villiers after having a break and just dominate like he normally does. But he's a freak of nature. There's not too many people in the world who's ever been able to do that from a batting perspective. And Dave, his life's evolved. It's moved into this phase now where he's a father of 3. He's going in and out of bubbles, so it's harder to be able to bring your family along, which is what's actually nearly impossible now. His circumstances, his life have changed. His priorities have probably shifted a little bit, but that's where it takes a little bit of time just to work through. Okay, that's my life shifted in certain ways, but now I've got to find the way to be able to get back to me being at my best. And look, the Sunrisers set up. It seems like there's a bit going on in the background there. Like for Dave to get dropped as captain. And that's and I know from personal experience, if things are going on in and around the team, even though you try and not let it affect your performances, there's just these underlying things that can just have a bit of a negative impact on your ability to perform at times. Dave's a true Aussie battler. He knows how to be able to come through, situations that are when his back's against the wall. That's what he's always thrived off. So he's definitely got a lot of incredible cricket in front of him, but it just seems like he just hasn't been able to get some momentum with his game, and now he comes back in after having a bit of a lean trot, more so scoring a little bit slower in that first part of the IPL, to coming back now after being dropped. He's going to be a bit rusty because he hasn't played cricket against world-class players. Like he's facing Nokia, who is bowling serious wheels, world-class bowler, and you expect your skills to be able to take him on straight away. So it might just take Dave a couple of games to be able to find his feet, but he's so incredibly good. He'll find it, and he'll work through it because. But yeah, the balance in your life, it does provide different challenges, no doubt, and especially when you expect to be performing all the time. Like Dave's never had an IPL like he's having right now. He scored over 500 runs for the last, I think it's like at least six seasons, and normally like match-winning innings, scoring fast. So like you can have a time where it doesn't go exactly to plan. And this is just a bit of a phase that he's going to have to work through, and he'll be better for it. And because he can continue to play international cricket and T20 cricket for a long period of time because he's still super fit. He's still got incredible skills. So he'll work his way out of it.
Watto, just let me get one more from you here. Delhi are the ones who are top of the table. You just talked about Nokia there. We all saw Ricky Ponting's speech at the start of the season as well, and all want to play for Delhi or just go to the nets and play cricket with our T20 Stars kit. I'm just thinking, I know that you have your beloved CSK. They're part of your soul. How are you seeing it at this point? Probably ask you this every week, but is it Delhi's to lose, or is it too early to say?
I do think it's Delhi's to lose. Yeah, they've got an incredibly well balanced team. they were playing really well anyway, and Shreyas Iyer's come back in, who's done incredibly well in the IPL for the last few seasons as a batter. So he's just provided even more strength to their batting. Their bowling lineup, they've got the raw speed of Nokia. They've got Rabada, who's one of the best T20 bowlers, one of the best bowlers in the world. Ashwin, who's just has evolved into an incredibly good T20 bowler. They've got Axar Patel with the left arm orthodox, who's skilled in any conditions. As I said, the one thing with Marcus Stoinis, if he's got a hamstring injury, just how they can fill that void of that fifth and sixth bowler, and obviously that incredible finisher that he the skill that he had in the last IPL and what he's got as well, that could be a bit of a question mark. But outside of that, yeah, they have got, in all conditions, they've got match winners all around. So if a few guys have a couple of off games or an off game, there'll be someone to put their hand up and perform. And just to be able to put a full stop on as well, like my favourite, Ricky Ponting, he's just the ultimate. He's the ultimate person. He's the ultimate coach. He knows how to get the best out of people, because that's just who he is. So they're in incredibly good hands with Ricky as well. So it seems like it is a bit of a perfect storm for Delhi, and I'd be really surprised if they didn't come away with the win, or definitely make it through to the final and know how to get across the line, like they just fell short last season.
Shame wasn't. Hope Watto's rap was good going second time round. Talk about a layoff. I thought we did okay. We'll look forward to having you back next week if you're still keen to do it.
Of course. This is the highlight of my week. What are you talking about?
Okay. Cheers, Watto.